All right, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. I am with one of my political heroes, Cori Bush, running for U.S. Congress in Missouri's First Congressional District. The primary is right around the corner on August 4th. Cori, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time today.
Oh, thank you, Qasim. It's great.
I want to start with a personal story. The first time I met you, and you probably don't remember this, but it was July 31st, 2021. We were in the middle of COVID, and they were about to shut down housing assistance, and you protested and slept on the Capitol steps. And I was with you till, I don't know, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And I mean, I was enamored. It was like, I loved everything you were doing. Can you talk a little bit about that night and why it was so important for you to show up for the people?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out. First of all, I'm so glad you said that because you were out there. You know, the idea that in this country who has not yet solved the unhoused crisis,
Yeah.
who could have solved the crisis decades ago, but because of human will, just hasn't. That Congress, because only Congress, the CDC, and the president could really stop the evictions from happening or add the extension. And for us to not do it, and we're the only ones that could. There's no philanthropist. There's no other person that could have done it. So I did it because, first of all, it was the right. Like, I couldn't figure out, how do we send 11,000 people to the streets? How do we send 7,000 of those people in my district to the streets? And I'm their representative, and I know this is possible. And on top of that, because I slept on the streets myself, because I was unhoused, living in a car with my 2 babies at one point in my life. And I would close my eyes just for a couple hours at night, just to get a little sleep, because I couldn't sleep too long, because I didn't want my kids to die in the middle of the night, because the temperature would drop so low. Even in the summer, it would drop so low in the car. So I had to do something. And so I want to say shout out to you for like jumping in so fast and just understanding that we got to show up for people we don't know. We got to show up for people, even when it's not acceptable, when we don't have the permission. We didn't have when we were out there, we didn't have permission.
That's right. And I mean, I think that's what I loved about you being out there, because you didn't wait for permission. And I would argue that you took the mandate from your constituents who elected you to represent them, to do what they couldn't do.
Right.
And you ran with it. And I think that's one of my frustrations with the Democratic Party as a whole right now, who are so beholden to so many corporate PACs and AIPAC and dark money PACs, that they forget that it's ultimately the people that need to be served. Congressman Ayanna Pressley, a good friend, has a beautiful line that the people closest to the pain should be closest to the power. And I think so I just want to start the conversation by thanking you for that, because I think you, not only you led by example, but you helped turn the tide and protect people from being out on the streets. And that to me is the greatest form of service there is.
Thank you so much.
We're in a highly contested race now for your old seat. And you said something, I remember the very bitter, loss, the very painful loss. And in your concession speech, you said, AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down.
I did.
and I remember you saying that, and everyone was panicking that, oh no, this is terrible. Why did she say this? This is, and now here we are, 4 years later, and everybody recognizes how toxic AIPAC is. Mayor Zohran Mamdani has called them monstrous, and there's, clutching of the pearls of that. Again, I think I want you to talk about this, because now it's easy for people to say, yeah, AIPAC is a problem. You even got Dan Goldman, who is the AIPAC sweetheart, on stage against Brad Lander saying, yeah, AIPAC has its problems, which you would never expect someone like him to say that. Mm-hmm. AIPAC in the Illinois primary spent $22 million and didn't once mention AIPAC or Israel in any of their ads, because they know how toxic they are. Mm-hmm. I want you to speak to what gave you the courage and the conviction to say, hey, this is wrong. It may not be a popular statement right now, but it is wrong, and I need to take the stand.
Yeah, well, I truly believe that leaders lead from the front. Yeah. So often we want to call ourselves leaders, and we hide out in the back, and we wait for someone else to get all the stones and the darts thrown at them. And I'm not that person. I believe that we have breakthrough when we walk through. And so that's what I'm going to do. So it was AIPAC who came for me with all of their might. It was AIPAC who used racism and lies, bigotry against me, against my own community, a community that I had spent so many years working for. I built up a reputation in this community as somebody who the community could trust and rely on, somebody who would serve. And for them to come in just with money and to discredit me, I could not let that go. Because they didn't just hurt me, even though they hurt me and they hurt my family. They didn't just hurt us; they hurt our community. Or people who were friends and colleagues for a long time. Though they split all over these lies that AIPAC told. Like you said, they didn't speak about Israel, Palestine. They didn't say Gaza. It was all about President Biden. It was about infrastructure. It had nothing, and they used lies.
Yeah.
So when I said, AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down, it was because of that, because they didn't care about how they destroyed our community, as far as making sure that the people that are bringing the resources could be in position to do so. They didn't care about who they hurt. They didn't care about the person who brought $41 million to the community and community project funding that went directly to organizations that were doing the great work on the ground. They didn't care about that. They didn't care that I was the one out on the steps that helped to save 7,000 people in St. Louis and 11 million across the country from evictions during COVID. They didn't care about that. They didn't care about all of the work that we had done. They only cared about their agenda. And because of that, and the thing is this, if you are right, you should be able to stand on who you are, say who you are, stick your chest out, and do it. And they didn't. So I said, AIPAC, I'm coming to tear your kingdom down. And I'm doing just that, but not just me. All of the groups that are doing, we got Track AIPAC, Reject AIPAC, and so many other groups and candidates around the country that are saying, hey, I see, and I don't want to be a part of that. They're saying that no, genocide has got to be the low bar. If we can't talk about genocide, and stand against genocide, then how do I care about what's happening in our communities for real, especially when we talk about the people that have the greatest need?
Professor Ta-Nehisi Coates was asked about this, whether the Democratic Party can save democracy. And he gave just a really painful answer that I'm sure you've heard, but for our viewers, where he said that the Democratic Party couldn't draw the line at genocide, so I would submit to you they can't protect democracy either. And in its current format, that's exactly the case.
Yes.
And I think that contrast you just pointed out, Cori, that how are we going to pretend to care about our children who don't have public schools that have air conditioners or heating services or have clean water when we're spending that money, $38 billion, to bomb schools in Gaza, to bomb schools in Iran, kill 168 schoolgirls? It's indefensible. And you see some in the party will rightly condemn this illegal war on Iran, but then wax eloquent and whitewash what's happening in Lebanon and in the West Bank and in Palestine. And I think people see the hypocrisy. That I think is part of it. But can you talk a little bit more about why there was such a drop-off in the youth vote in 2024 versus 2020?
Well, so thinking back to 2020, of course it was COVID, but also we had been saying the same thing for such a long time, at trying to help people understand why Black lives must matter, why the killing of people who are the killing by people who are supposed to protect the community, why that kept happening with disproportionately and with impunity. And so when George Floyd was killed, when Breonna Taylor was killed, and so many others, millions of us took to the streets, and we took to the streets for months. And what we said was we wanted somebody who would speak to us, who would listen to us first and speak to us. And when we looked at the candidates, the people made a decision that, that Joe Biden was going to be the one, because he said that he would listen. He said that that he would be the one. And so people had a reason to show up. They felt like, I'm connected to something that means that I'm valued, that I am valued. So whether I'm sleeping on the street, whether I have insurance or not, whether I have $20 in my bank account or negative, that I feel like if he's going to stand up for Black folks that usually would be pushed aside, then maybe that means that we are getting some change. And so I think in 2024, what we saw was people saying, hey, like the killing of people, the genocide of people, whether they called it genocide or not at the time, the mass killing of people in another country with our tax dollars is just like shady. It's like, I don't know, like whether
Yeah.
they really understood at the time because information was still coming out, but people just felt like, that doesn't feel like the work that we've done for all of these years and what we said that we wanted. It doesn't feel like if we said no to killing people in this country, we're also saying no to killing people in other countries. And because of that long history with Palestine, because of the solidarity, I feel like that was one of the reasons why
Sure.
people sat it out. Because the thing is this: you said it, hypocrisy. We can't, like, how do we teach people that, like, believe in the Democratic Party, and we do all of this protesting after George Floyd was killed, but can't get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act
Right.
signed
Yeah.
into law? How do we say that we are for human rights, but then we allow our tax dollars to bomb people in other countries, and then we profit from the war? It's hypocritical, and so I
Yeah.
think that's part of it.
I think that's really well said, and that speaks to why your campaign is so effective, because you're running a people-funded grassroots campaign on the issues. And so let's talk about your election. We're just over a month away from Election Day on August 4th at the time of this recording. What are you hearing on the ground? The contrast between you and your opponent, who, to my understanding, is pretty heavily funded by AIPAC, and proudly at that, which is devastating and disappointing. But what are you hearing on the ground? What are some of the priorities that people are focused on in Missouri's first district?
So one thing that we've seen for sure is a shift in locally. People are ready to reject AIPAC. People
Mhm.
are speaking out against data centers and shutting down, the possibility of some of these big data centers in our community. We're hearing people say that what they don't want is anyone that is bought and paid for, period, regardless of who they're bought and paid for by. So the people don't want sellout politicians, and they're not
Mhm.
satisfied with that. And they see now that, okay, I can find that information out for myself. But what people are saying also is, we know that we can have more. We don't have to take crumbs off of a table and say that we ate. We can
Yeah.
have, because Cori was able to bring funding into our communities. We have, when we talk about affordability, everybody is talking about affordability. Our communities are talking about affordability, and people have said, Cori, we saw so many ads against you before that you didn't vote for the infrastructure package, but now we understand that you were supporting infrastructure, but what you were saying is we needed the social safety net. We
Right.
need healthcare. We need childcare. We need fully funding of our schools. And now we understand, you were saying we got to have both roads and bridges and childcare and so
Right.
forth. So people are saying, because what we understand is, had we gotten that Build Back Better Act, then people, maybe people would not have been voting for Donald Trump over the
That's
price
right.
of eggs. If we
That's
would have
right.
pulled 40 million families out of poverty, we would not be seeing what we're seeing right now. And so that's what people are saying on the ground. But what they also are understanding is we got to mitigate the destruction and the chaos that's happening, while also lowering costs, while also, meeting the need.
Yeah, and this is one of my frustrations with the Biden administration. That you ran on saving the soul of America, you ran on Build Back Better, and then when push came to shove, you stood by the Jim Crow filibuster and refused to let it pass. When it came to holding Trump accountable, you stood by Merrick Garland, who slow walked everything, and then when it got to the height of pressure, you gave Kamala Harris 107 days and said, go figure it out. People are critical of Kamala Harris. I think that's perfectly okay to be critical of her, but you gave her 107 days to meet the entire country. I'm sorry. That's just, it's not going to happen. It's just too difficult. One of the most Googled items on election day was, did Joe Biden drop out? I mean,
Oh,
that should be a source of deep embarrassment for Joe Biden. And like I said, I think you can be critical of Kamala Harris. I don't actually blame her entirely. I put 99% of the blame on Biden for setting her up for failure and setting the party up for failure. And look, I get a lot of hate from this for saying this from Democrats, but I think we need to reckon with the fact that he screwed up. Otherwise, we're going to make the same mistakes over and over again. We need to have a party that's committed more to justice. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again: the worst Democrat is still better than the best Republican. But that doesn't mean we have to settle for the worst Democrat. We can
right.
have the best Democrat. And in this race, that's you. We need to get you elected in this space. In this final sprint, I've been putting your link in the comments. How can folks get involved in the campaign? Obviously, they should donate. I'm going to donate. I'm going to keep donating. But what meaningfully can folks do to make sure we get you across that finish line? Because this is a deep blue seat from what I understand. And the primary is the election. So this is really where it matters most.
Yes, yes. August 4th is where it matters for us. So what we need is people on the phones. If you are not local, if you're not in St. Louis, what we need you to do is sign up. You can Google us. You can go to coribush.org, and you can get our information. You can sign up for one of our phone banking shifts. You can, if you're local, you can come and canvass with us, be a part of some of these events. Make sure you get your people to register to vote if they haven't registered to vote, if you are local, and turn out the vote. But also, so we have this big, I'm turning 50.
Wow.
Turning
Congrats.
50. Thank you. The very first day of in-person absentee voting, July 21st. What we're doing that weekend, though, the weekend of July 18th and 19th, we would love for people to come to St. Louis. We're asking people from all across the country to come to St. Louis, help us put together a big rally, and let's get out here and knock 10,000 doors. Let's activate St. Louis so that 2 weeks later we will bring home the win that the people need. So look at check out our social media. We have the mobilized links there. You can go to our website and sign up, but please make sure that you are involved. We only have 42 days left to win this. And shout out to the folks in New York. Get this win.
That's right. Before we close, though, I want to close on a positive note because I think we need to have joy in these difficult times. Otherwise, we're going to lose our minds. What brings you joy? How do you maintain your balance? How do you maintain your mental health? What do you look forward to each day despite the struggles that we're going through?
I love my husband. Let me just say I love my husband. But what brings me joy first is my faith. Always, it's just my faith. I am. I'm a Christian believer, and it's my faith that keeps me, that gives me hope, that sustains me. But my husband, my family, and then ice cream.
Yes. What's your favorite flavor?
It's strawberry. I like the fruity. I'm fruity, but on those rough days, it's a rough day when I get chocolate like that.
Okay, that's the litmus test. See, I'm the only one in my family who likes butter pecan. Nobody else likes butter pecan.
That's my parents. They were butter pecan.
Maybe I'm just an old head or something, because I love butter pecan. Like for me, like I like the mint chocolate chip. I like the cookie dough. I like the Superman stuff. But for me, like my comfort is butter pecan, and everyone in my family looks at me like I'm crazy because they all agree they'll get Neapolitan, but then they have to get a separate little Haagen-Dazs thing of butter pecan for me. So I feel like I'm an outsider there.
Yeah, you would be welcome in my family, because I feel like my parents would buy that so that we wouldn't eat it.
Really? No. See, that's the running joke in my household. My kids are like, "You just bought that, so we wouldn't eat it." I'm like, actually, at this point, it's true. It's definitely true. Cori Bush, former Congresswoman. Inshallah, future Congresswoman as well. August 4th is the primary election. We put the link in the bio, coribush.org. Go out and donate. Phone bank. Come out to St. Louis for your 50th birthday, half century. Amazing. Congratulations. We'd love to have you back on before the primary, definitely after the primary when you win. But Cori, I go back to that moment when I got a chance to meet you for the first time. And, there are people who have a presence that's larger than life. And your presence is one of those. And I'm hopeful we can get you back into Congress to serve the people, because we need leaders like you in Congress.
Thank you so much. And I hope we can get you to St. Louis for the weekend of the 18th, 19th.
We'll do our best. I promise. Okay. Thank you all for tuning in to Let's Address This with Qasim Rashid. Congresswoman Cori Bush. Check her out at coribush.org. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.